My name is Nicole Jackson. I'm the curator here at the Penetanguishene Museum. And tonight we want to do a presentation because of the Remembrance Day that's coming up. So I talked to John Dubeau because he has a lot of different presentations he's been doing for the last little bit. And so he helped put together this evening where we're going to have sort of 3 different presentations. The first one will be John Dubeau. We'll be talking about his database about all of the World War I and World War II soldiers that actually died that were from Penetanguishene. And then we'll have Burke Thompson talk about his grandfather, the Great Escape.
My father.
Your grandfather was the first mayor.
I know I don't look old enough.
Yeah, sorry. That's true. And then our special guest today is Waxy Gregoire. We weren't sure if he could make it, but we're very happy he is because you just wrote a book. A very interesting book about a local story about, I won't say more because I don't want to ruin it because that's at the end, but it does have a connection for tonight. I just want to give you a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. If we do have to leave, there is a fire alarm. We have to leave the building. So if you can all just leave out this door here, and actually if you turn right, there are stairs that go directly downstairs and outside, and we'll meet outside. There is washrooms on this floor as well as there's also some washrooms on the main floor. There is water and some treats and coffee in the back. If you need anything, I can help you with that. So please welcome John Dubeau up here at the beginning of our presentation.
I may do this sitting down, and then a bit of pain standing up, so I'm just going to, this was just a slideshow that I had done, and it's just been running, so, and I'll talk more about it shortly. So I'm just going to take it off here. And I'm looking for a particular one here. Whenever you wear glasses.
What are you looking for?
One called Liberty. Yeah, there we go.
Excellent.
Now, the fellow's already mentioned the fact that Burke is going to talk about the Great Escape, his POWs in the Great Escape, and then Waxy is going to, he's got some interesting stories about why he wrote the book and some of the information that he's put into it. So anyways, if you want to give me 30 seconds, as I get older, I forget what I'm going to say. So,
we know how it is.
yeah. Anyways, around 25 years ago, I read a book on Penetanguishene. I think it was called Penetanguishene Past and Present. And then there's a Facebook page which is called that same name. And the person who wrote the book was Jerry Barber, was the name. And I started reading the book. And usually when I read a book, I don't bother using the pencil to put any marks in it, just in case I want to give it away to somebody else. But it turned out that I started marking things down in the book. He was talking about people that lived on Mariah Street, and I spent an awful lot of time playing tennis out there. And at that time, I got to know almost everybody on the street. And then he got talking about, say, Teeswater grocery store, and I didn't hear him. And so there was another problem, and then he makes some mention of, I don't know if you know the name D.D. Marshall or not. Yeah, well, people are familiar with Phil Marshall's name. D.D. was a brother to him. And, but he starts off in the book by saying that he and D.D. were throwing snowballs in this vacant lot, which is where Mike's Milk is uptown. Most of you know where that is. at the stop by the George or Robert Domain. You're going up the hill, it's on the left-hand side. There used to be a monster hotel there, and my uncle had always mentioned about being in a hotel. I didn't know anything about it. Came from Penetanguishene all my life, but nothing. So that sort of got me interested in, you know, I like to know what some of these things were. So anyways, over the years, it turned out that I was asked to be on the board of directors of the museum. And I think I spent either 10 or 11 years. And Nicole's been here how many years ago?
20.
20. So I was started before Nicole got here. But anyways, after Nicole got here, I started doing my research on things that I could find. And Nicole gave me permission to go downstairs into the other chambers where people are not allowed to go down. And I would go through anything that involved Penetanguishene, sort of first-hand information. So anyways, what I came up with, I wasn't going to mention this, but I thought what I'd do is show it to you anyways, because this, I won't spend any more than 5 minutes on this. This is, so what I did, I came across all these pictures that Nicole had downstairs, and then all of a sudden Facebook came along, and people started putting pictures up on Facebook, and then I started collecting them. And I wasn't collecting them to sell, I was collecting them for my own benefit. And after a while I said to myself, well, you know, I got all these pictures, I would like people to take a look at them. And then all of a sudden I said to myself, I'll try to make it into a history program as much as possible. So this is what I came up with. It's a touch screen, or I'll use a mouse, but it's a touch screen. And there's one up at Georgian Village. If you're up there visiting somebody, if you go up for a coffee, it's about that size over in the corner. The museum has one downstairs. And basically the way that works is that it was a sort of a story on my pictures dealing with the town of Penetanguishene. So that's supposing you were looking at it, and again, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I've already used up 30 seconds of my 5 minutes. So we're closer to 3 minutes.
We're not going anywhere.
But anyways, well, Burke said you could have an hour and a half. There's some.
I didn't.
You didn't talk to Burke. Anyway, just very, very quickly, the museum and the Georgian Village, they have touchscreens. So rather than using both, this is all touchscreens. So I just divided up as to heritage homes in town, where people worked. For example, I'll just show you a couple of stuff. Where people worked, and this would just give you different places like the lumber industry. PMCL, believe it or not, was a big company between Penetanguishene and other. Fern shoe, people would say, where's Fern shoe? Well, the whole idea is I tried to set this up because so many things have started to disappear in Penetanguishene over the years. The high school always works me, but that's one of the main ones. All these have disappeared. Copen, Green Stove Foundry, it's still there in parts. The Fern Shoe, PMCL is gone, all the lumber industry is gone. So it's sort of set that if anybody was interested in seeing anything dealing with the lumber industry, all they'd have to do is to click on this, and then that would open up something else for them. Show them where the lumber industries were in town, and if they wanted to see information on, everybody knows about Beck. McGibbon's, a lot of people here have never heard of McGibbon because of the fact that they closed up, I think in the late 40s in that time. But anyway, if you want to see information on McGibbon, you just touch on it. And then it will give you some information down the side on this particular lumber mill. And then when I did this is sort of the second time I've done this program. When I did it many years ago, there would be one picture and some information. Now what I did, over the years I was able to find more pictures, so what I did, I set it up that I just displayed every picture that I had of McGibbon's. Like where it was in town. That's what the bay used to look like. Those are all log booms down in the bottom of the bay. Some of these we floated in all the way up in the Big Inlet area. But anyways, number played a very big role, so I don't want to spend too much time. So basically, if you were interested in looking at it, there's other things that are here all the way around. This one that I just happened to click accidentally was I also did history of businesses in town. So I found, say, pictures, for example, there is Robert Street right there, and there is Main Street. Now, the arrow up here, if I want to go further down, because there's more businesses further down there. But anyways, I'll just pick up this one right here. I had made a comment about, in Jerry Barber's book, about this big hotel that was on the corner uptown, so anyways, this is a map from 1856, believe it or not, that was able to come across. Shows you where the hotel was, right here. There's, back in the days before it was Main Street, it used to be called Penetanguishene Road. And then there is Robert Street here. Now, I cut it out just to show you where it is approximately. And that's what that hotel looked like. That was on the corner of, if you're going up the hill at the stoplights, that was on the corner on the left-hand side. Matter of fact, there's 3 buildings that size up Robert Street. So, anyways, I don't want to say anything more about this. Just thought I'd mention this if anybody was interested. That's all on businesses. And again, it would just be a matter of touching the screen. You just touch the screen, show you what schools, there are pictures that are dealing with the schools. And with the pictures, anytime I got a picture, I try to put names in it, like, because what happens nowadays, people show you a picture, oh, who was that? I don't know who that was. Especially on Facebook, you get all these pictures put up on Facebook. So I'm really happy the ones I see up there that have names, like the classes. And so now, when I see names, I try to put names against the actual names. Brandon.
I just found out today that Jerry Barber lived across the road from the tennis court on Mariah Street, and I lived at the other end. But he was older than me, I mean. I didn't know he lived there until today.
Yeah, he lived, I think, close to where Volsky's lived.
I think he lived next.
Sam, where was it, right?
Jim Sobey's house.
Yeah,
Story's house?
it used to be Bud
Down
Dubeau.
from the
That was Bud Dubeau's house first.
So anyways, all these pictures there, right, so if you're interested in looking at more, just stop in the museum, they have the identical screen downstairs, and it's not identical, it's 98%. The one up at Beach, where the Jordan Building Bistro has the exact program. So I have not updated the one down here. So as I find new pictures, I've been adding it, so now I've got them down here and then put them in on the computer. So anyways, and all you have to do is just touch the screen and push whatever you want to see. You want to look at the houses in Penetanguishene? There they are. So if you want to find out whether your house is actually a heritage house, if you live at a certain address, you can just check it out online. Okay, so anyways, that is there, it's downstairs, it's also a Jordan Village. I didn't even want to mention it, I just thought about this, about a half hour before I came up, I thought, well, maybe there'd be a couple of people here that might become, members of the museum, or can't join the board anymore, and, there's a new name for them, so. So anyways, what you see up here, this is just where you can find the pictures of what Burke does is, it's a lot easier to talk with a picture up on the wall, if you would mention it, rather than just sitting up here. So this group here, this will be when Burke gets up, and this will be pictures of Waxy Gregoire. So, when Nicole phoned me up, first thing I said to myself, well, how much time? Is it gonna be 10 minutes? I'd be happy with that. So, I thought, well, I'll try to make as long as possible. Then I got another idea. I said, I know, Burke was all about this great story. And then I got Waxy with his new book. There's history in that as well. So then, what I thought, well, I'm not, I don't know an awful lot about these individual things, but I have an idea about the tennis court, because I spent an awful lot of time in that tennis court growing up. So mine is going to be based on the cenotaph. So just picture you driving into any small town, and there has to be something in that small town that people will recognize, and sort of bring it away and say, oh, and so they're telling their friends, say, oh yeah, I saw something in that town. For example, I was driving across northern Ontario one time, and there's a sign. I can't remember the girl's name, I should have checked it up. First Lady Mayor in Ontario. Does anybody have another name? Because between Sudbury and who's up in that area. But if you see things, you know, when you're driving, you remember it. And to me, coming in the Penetanguishene, like now we have the more lights, but coming in the Penetanguishene, you look on the right hand side, you see this beautiful cenotaph off the side. And at one time, it was just, it used to be just a cenotaph. And now they do leave, a lot more greenery, more flowers, and it's, you know, it's really something when you come into town to see that. So I went searching to find out how much information I could find on the cenotaph. Because again, actually you can see that little opening area, that's the tennis court. Tennis court's now red and green. And the tennis courts went north and south. But in 1934, that was the earliest picture I could find. I'm sorry, I'm one step in myself. In 1920, before 1920, that building right there was in the temporary tennis court. That was called the Mammoth Arena. And what you're looking at right here in the front would be the sidewalk, and there would be Main Street right here, coming down. And then this is so now you're looking towards Main Street, and the back end of this was almost over on Mariah Street. So this big building was right there. It was owned by the Kurtamash family. Now they say 1920. It was there till about that time, because the reason is that the town owned a piece of property right beside it. And the property that was beside it, at the end of the First World War, which means I think in 1918, they decided that they're going to put up a memorial to the fallen soldiers. So what they did is that they purchased this building, tore it down, and then they turned around and they put up, and that picture's from 1934. I think I was was, basically all over the place. Was in Ottawa, I definitely go to National Archives and check through some. But that's the way it looked in 1934. And if you look at it, then you'll see the tennis courts start right behind it, and you go down to the same direction as the arena. And now they go the other direction, north and south. Nice, you go up the tennis court, nice screens around and everything. Well, back in those days, you can see, look at these things here, and you can see they, 2x4s. And then you nail the screens with 2x4s.
How many courts were there?
2 courts.
It's two.
Yep, and usually, if anybody was watching any of the tennis, if you happen to watch it, you have the tennis court, and the back area behind the tennis court is almost from here to that wall over there. When we grew up, there was only 4 feet behind the baseline and the fence, and it was all asphalt. And 10 tennis balls would last 5 minutes. And every time the ball hit the ground, you got black. They wouldn't wear it out, they just get black. So if you have any questions, well, just stop me.
So there's a fountain in front of the cenotaph back then?
No, it was,
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you go back 1 picture, 2 pictures, that's where this is right here. There was never a fountain there. I don't ever remember. Does anybody remember a fountain?
Well, it looks like there's water coming.
In which picture?
I'm just using your historical reference. here.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It's like
Right
one
there.
of the two nozzles.
I'll go back in time, because now that you mentioned it here, there could have been a couple of sprinkler heads in there.
Because the fire hydrant was right there, so it makes sense they,
It's very possible, yes, because the fire hydrant was, maybe about 25 yards in, the fire hydrant was sitting right here. It would look a lot better to have water coming up nowadays. So, that was in 1934, and there's a picture of the memorial service, and the memorial service started an awful long time ago. It's not as if it just started, it's been going on for quite a while. And I think this picture is back in the early 60s. And this was another one showing the same 4 soldiers, but from a different angle. And the reason why I mention this is that if you take a look at the plaque right here, and then you come back to the very first picture, you see the size of it. And you should know the main reason is that this was dedicated for the soldiers of the First World War, figuring that there'd never be another war after that. And of course, there might even be a third one the way things are going now. But, so anyways, this remained like this until after the Second World War. And then you can see the size of it now. They did, we played there all that time, never even bothered to look at it, see what was on it. But it turns out that that's what the plaque actually looks like. And down the left-hand side were the people in the First World War. And 31 at the bottom, that's just my count, I just counted them up as 31. And these were all the ones that were classified as being killed. And the ones in the second column, right here, these are all people in the Second World War. And there's 31 of those as well. So, now this plaque was put up by the workers. They're called the Women's Institute. This was put in about 1947, up in that time. So the war had been over. So, and I never heard of this Women's Institute. I thought maybe it was a church group, but apparently after the war, there was a group of people in small towns got together, and they referred to them as the Women's Institute of this town or that town second. So these people were the ones that are responsible for putting in this larger stone to represent both of these. And of course, it's also being the Korean War, there's being,
Too many.
too many, yes. Now, that's the Korean War, and there were 3 people from Penetanguishene that were involved in the Korean War. And this is part of the original cenotaph now, so if you can go up there and not even see it. But if you walk back here to look at it, it's sitting right there on that page. And I'm assuming, hoping that's not going to be another war, but so they have another bench over here. I hope not. So that's basically a cenotaph right there. So, anybody have any questions? But it is something that you see when you're coming into, if you're a new person coming into town, you look there and you'll remember it for a long time. So anyways, with my work at the museum many years ago, I sort of got thinking about the names that were on that cenotaph. And with the names I saw on the cenotaph, it turned out that these were people that had been killed. So if you're interested in finding out people from Penetanguishene that went to war, I put it into a database of this type. So if you were to fixate World War I, this came from the National Archives of Canada. The internet was free when I first started doing this a few years back, so I was able to find all these things. So I was able to find such things as a person's name, and if they were either born in Penetanguishene or they worked in Penetanguishene, then to me, they were part of that database. So I've got them in alphabetical order, so you can just go through it one at a time. And the way you go on it.
Did these people that served or people that were killed?
These are people that served.
Just served.
And the ones that were killed are on this plaque right here. Like I can go back to the other program and get a name off that and then go into the database, because you don't have to go through page by page. All you have to do is try to set this up as well. If you're interested in checking somebody out, you can get all their names down here. You scroll down. So if you have to know somebody's in the First World War, and you wanted to check on them, anybody know anybody?
Walter John Drone.
Walter John.
G.
Right there. Luckily, I was able to find a picture. This sort of sounds like a good setup, because of the fact that I found more than 350 names. So this database says, I tried to find every veteran that was in the Army in the First World War, and I came up with 356 names. I found 20 pictures. Now, it's tough to get a picture from back in the First World War. You're looking over 100 years. So, it's tough to find them. So what I did was say, most of them are set up like this, just with the cenotaph and the information down the side. Whatever I was able to find, and then I was able to find a picture, I thought I'd put the picture on there. The picture may be something like that, or maybe the whole thing. And I was able to find 20 pictures, and very likely that they'll come up. And the last one that came up, was I remember the name, where's that? So the last one I found was a peacock. And I didn't even know peacocks lived in Penetanguishene.
Yeah.
So I was able to find, I got these a year ago, 3 pictures of John L. Peacock, born in Penetanguishene. And I'm pretty sure he's spent his whole life in Penetanguishene. But he wouldn't have, because of the fact that he died in 1918. But anyways, I just have to get 3 pictures of him, so I move things around and got the information out. But again, if you want to, there's all kinds of names that are down there.
John?
Yep.
So 31 deaths out of 350 enlisted seems a very low percentage of casualties. Any comment on historical reference for?
Okay, now, Penetanguishene was a big town back in those days. It's bigger than what it is now. Yeah, it was about 9,000 people at one time. Because, I showed that picture of the lumber yards. That's all that was in town. And the bay was full of lumber, full of those logs, and all the industry was up along. Either your house wouldn't be there.
Yeah. House was on sawdust.
It's on sawdust, yes. And that came from Waxy Gregoire. But I should have taken a couple minutes and went through each of the pictures to see how many are classified as being died. Now, the ones that are on the stone, there was only, what did I say, 31 on the headstone. So, out of 350 records, and there'd be 31 that are recorded. But I was able to find a few more.
Yeah, this seems like a low percentage when you think of the casualties in the war. It seems like a low number.
Yes.
So we were lucky in Penetang for some reason.
But the other thing I think of is the number of young people that was the first thing that got me going, that on the cenotaph, this the names on the right hand side. Those are the ones that had died, and that really disturbed me, because to see that there was that many young people. And Penetang at that time was not as big as it was back in the lumber industry. It was probably only about 5,000 people. So it's smaller it is now, and you're looking at 31 names that I had of people that had died. So.
Can I interject a little bit just about the whole World War I, and we didn't have a lot in our town? One thing that was different between World War I and World War II is that everyone that enlisted from here was part of the 157th Battalion out of Base Borden. So in your village, you all went to the same place. So yes, we were lucky that our battalion didn't have that many casualties. There were other communities that all of their young men were in the same battalion, and maybe when they went over there, they could have been part of a really bad battle, and they could have been really decimated all of their place. So in World War II, it was different. You could enlist with your brother right beside you, and you could be sent to completely different places to train, and they did that on purpose. So yeah, so when you're saying that World War I, we were probably lucky that we weren't maybe the front lines of some of those, but there are other communities where it'd be very different, and that's why they changed it up for World War II. So,
I was going to say that, but I forgot. So anyways, there's 350 names in there. I should have counted up exactly. I know that the stone says it's 31 that died, but I bet any money that there was more than 30 in that list. And so if you want to take a look at it, you check out downstairs or up at George Village. I did the same thing for World War II. And on the plaque, on the cenotaph plaque, it says that there was 31 names there. And then I went checking out, the Archives of Canada, because of the Privacy of Information Act, you cannot find who the people are for a few years yet. So the only ones that are listed there are the ones that are killed, killed in war. And so whenever I went in to check, I came up with 54 names. But my criteria may have been differently. I just said if they were born in Penetanguishene or they're working in Penetanguishene. So I came up with 54 names. So anyways, this is just set up the same way. Same thing, you want to select a Waxy? What do you want to check?
Donald Copeland, yeah.
Is that Copeland? Is that the one you want?
That's the one that passed away.
Okay. Waxy's going to miss this guy. So these, and this was sort of what really hit my eye many years ago, the fact that you know, you're looking at 45 people that left this town and never returned. And they're all teenagers in most cases. There are some older ones, but I should have pointed out back in World War II, you know, it would say age, in most cases when enlisted, 15 years old, 17 years old. If you found an older person, he was probably in his early 20s. But, so anyways, all these pictures are there, whatever, there are more pictures, and this was courtesy of the museum downstairs. And then I was able to find some, but anyways, the whole thing is set up here. These were, what's that? Oh, that's right. So anyways, after I did all of this, well, this is available here, and it's available up at the Georgia Village, if anybody wants. So after I did all of that, this sort of got me going on all the other stuff that I found. And then that was the databases, and then if you saw it when you first came in, there was a slideshow going. So I was able to take the slides that I found for the Senate, for the database, and there's a slideshow of that. Let's see. So if you wanted to come in, the slideshow is downstairs, it's up to, but anyways, that's what I did. Anybody have any questions, I can answer, and, Fran can answer for me. Okay, any questions?
I don't have a question, but when you're showing the pictures of the cenotaph, somewhere on Penetang past and present Facebook page, a relative of mine, her name is Lori Castle, and she posted a picture of a dedication of some sort at the cenotaph that her grandmother took, and it was like, I don't know, 1916 or something. I have a
copy?
I was trying to just find it on Facebook. I have a picture because I had sent it to her. I said, Lori, I think she thought it was at Discovery Harbor. And I said, no, that was done at Memorial Park, because I had gone over there with her picture and I was comparing the houses, and you can still see the one house is still there at Memorial Park.
Yeah.
And so she said, okay, I'll correct it on Facebook. So but I could probably get it from her.
So was the picture of a commemoration or ceremony from 1916?
I think so, yeah.
I'd love to get it.
I'll see if I can get it.
Okay. Nicole gave you an email address and you can mail to her.
Yeah,
Fran.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that we people that were fortunate enough to watch the presentation that John did up there, it was just amazing, there's a whole lot that's not there. That he talked about, like the 5 hotels in our town in 1940, was it?
Earlier than that.
Earlier than that, yeah. I just took that number. But anyway, it was just amazing how the town was so huge. And then just seem to be houses now.
I'm doing one at the arena tomorrow. I'm doing with the senior group that we're doing the last 5 weeks. And Fran mentioned about the 5 hotels.
Okay, well, John.
Tomorrow, I don't know how many of us watch, I'm going to give them a test.
Oh.
So, I don't want to mention the test because so many people go home.
Thank you, Larry.
Some people over there,
What time is the seniors?
2:15. Some of the people, there's a couple of people who must be getting tired of hearing the same thing over and over again.
Never.
Any other questions?
I think we can go on to the next, on to our next.
Yeah. I'm gonna stand there.
That's good, 5 minutes, John.
Thank you, John.
Thanks,
So I was supposed to speak for about a half an hour, but since Mr. Dubeau took half my time, I'm going to do the shortened version. Before you start, I have to thank John for his work in talking about this community and the history. I thought I knew a lot about it, and I did, but I found a lot more because I've attended some of his presentations. And I'm definitely appreciative of that. The next thing is I want to thank John for helping, as I'm doing a presentation, can have pictures come up on the wall, and I do appreciate that. But if it doesn't go right, it's not on me.
Right off the bat, I'll put picture number 4 up.
So, I'm going to just do a shortened version.
That's yours. Who wants to talk?
Okay.
If it was a tune, he did.
Mine's on my coat, but that's all right. So, this is going to be just skipping the story. When I was a kid,
Here we go.
you're going to keep interrupting me? So when I was a kid, the truth of the matter is I didn't even know there was a war. And that's as I learned much later in life about PTSD. It was not talked about whenever I go into my dad's room. I'm about 7 years old to say hi to my dad on a Sunday morning. He's watching test patterns, smoking cigarettes and drinking rum at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then he yells at me to get out. So as a kid, I don't know what's going on, right? So I got to appreciate him a whole lot more, especially after he died and I started getting all this feedback about the man he was in his profession and everything. Okay, so let's go down to, my dad was born in 1915. In the mid-1930s, he joins the Simple Foresters, and he actually became an officer there. But he wanted to fly. His dad got him a job in Toronto. He goes down to Toronto, he didn't like the job. He walked to Penetanguishene. Didn't stay behind, quit, nothing, just walked to Penetanguishene. Joined the Simple Foresters, and then he wants to fly. So there was nothing in the Canadian situation at the time, so he went and joined the RAF. So there's a little bit of humor in some of this stuff, and one of them is when I was a kid, 13 years old, old, I was going off the middle of ski jump, and I couldn't understand why, until I started learning a bit about my dad. So my dad is over learning to fly in England, and he's out there doing the practice stuff, and he sees a bridge over a river. He says, I could fly under that bridge, so he flies under the bridge. Well, somebody saw him fly under the bridge and reported him. So he's going to be called up in front of a hearing, and he got called in by the bosses, and said, okay, at this hearing, you are absolutely to deny that you flew under that bridge. These are your orders, because to do what you did, you're out. So sure enough, they interview him, and it's being all recorded, and said, did you, Flight Lieutenant Thompson, fly under the bridge as alleged on that day? I absolutely did not, sir. Okay, we are accepting your statement that you did not fly under the bridge. Stop recording. Stop recording. You ever do it again, you're out. So, my dad was appreciated in there. He actually did boxing. We have pictures of him boxing in the prison camp. According to him, he never lost a fight, so that's why I never irritated him too much. So, okay, so now he's over in England, and he's flying the Whitley. Oh, there it is. So this is before the Lancasters. This is in the late 1930s, and this is the plane he's flying, crew of 5, and he's a flight lieutenant. And he's assigned to a leaflet raid one day before Canada comes into the war. My dad is doing a leaflet raid over Germany, and it's interesting reading the history, because the reports already got shot down and all of this stuff. The truth of the matter was engine failure over the Ruhr Valley. The whole crew had to bail out, and it was much later in life when Dad told me a little bit of stories. And he said when he bailed out and the plane was going around, this is his story, I'm not saying it's true, and it was going around and at him, and he says it came really close to him, probably missed by a quarter mile, but anyway, he said it came close to hitting. Anyway, down they go, and they're captured. And a man named Herman Goring finds out about a Canadian who's been captured, and Canada's not even in the war. So Goring meets with my father. The report back from England to my dad's father, who I never met because he passed before I was born, is that missing in action, and he might fear the worst. Our family was part of the United Empire Loyalists, and they came over from England and Scotland in the late 1600s and stuff. Started off, and half the family went to New York State and half stayed in Canada, eventually coming to Penetanguishene. So it's interesting that if you remember back in the day when you went to the theater, they had a newsreel play before, local, Canadian news and stuff. Our family in New York State saw the pictures of my father meeting with Goring in Germany. So they called my grandfather here, said he's not dead. We just saw the newsreel. First Canadian prisoner of war, World War II. This is nothing to be super proud of, but he was in the entire World War, and he was the longest serving Canadian in prisoner in history. So that's just a fact. It's nothing to be super proud of. So engine failure.
In Canadian history or in history?
He's the longest serving Canadian prisoner of war in Canadian history. Because he was in basically the whole war, except for 3 days in the Great Escape. I'm coming to that one. So they were all captured, and he met with Herman Goring, and my dad, again, when I was a kid, he didn't talk at all, but when he did talk to me about it, he said he felt that Goring didn't seem like that bad a guy. He talked to him about Canadian ice hockey players, and he said that he told my dad, don't worry about it, we'll have this thing wrapped up in 6 months, you'll be back with your family. That's what Goring told my father. Now, meeting with Boring probably saved my dad's life, but I'll get to that in a minute or so. So, now we're gonna go to 1940. There's that picture that my family saw, our relatives saw New York State, and that was the one that proved that he was still alive. So, now they're doing the Tunnel for the Great Escape. The movie The Great Escape, there's tons of books written about it. That's Ted Bears, I met with Ted myself, and all these different books, including a good one by my friend Waxy Gregoire, which he'll talk about when he gets up here. So, this is really something. When 20 years ago, the History Channel shows up at my door, knocks on my door, and wants to talk to me about my father, because they learned about my father and all this stuff. And I said, okay, my brother is several years younger than me, and by the time my dad did talk a bit about it, he knows more factual things than I do. So let's go down to where my brother is. So they came down and they were preparing to do a presentation on the History Channel that I've seen several times. It was played almost every Remembrance Day. And what the presentation was going to be was 3 Canadians that got out in the Great Escape and were murdered by Hitler. Because the 76 that got out, 73 recaptured, 50 of them were murdered. Hitler said to kill them all, but he got talked out of it. So the story was going to be about 3 Canadians that were killed. After hearing from my brother and me, they changed it to 2 that got out and 2 that were killed and 1 that wasn't. That was my dad. So they changed the show. On that day, my brother did the actual video for the show. And again, I've seen it several times on the History Channel. So that's okay. So the next thing, if you could show that the tunnel, if you can find it. And these are the 3. They dug 3. There are 3 tunnels that were dug. 2 of them were found. Harry was the one that they ended up getting out on, and that's like a football field long. Now the interesting thing about that is the History Channel kept in touch with me for many years. They actually took some stuff that I lent them and finally gave it back. That they said that they're going back. This is the prison camp of Stalag Luft III, and it's in Poland. My dad was in 9 prison camps, 7 in Germany, 2 in Poland, 1 big Stalag Luft III. So they were going back to that spot, and the Germans built the prison camp on this spot precisely because tunnels could not be dug. The History Channel went over and they were going to give me all this detail. They contacted me and said, the story about the Great Escape is even more amazing than you could ever imagine. I said, why is that? Well, he said, we went over there with the modern equipment and everything else. We had stopped the project because it kept collapsing on us. So the guys, when they went to bed at night, they started the bunks were all full of slats all the way along. When the time of the Great Escape, they had like 3 slats in the bed. They had to make sure they didn't fall between, because that's what was propping up the one with the, yeah, this one here. See, you see where they went down, and then they created the little transfer stations along the way. They had to create aerated and all this stuff. And the one thing is that the tunnels came up short of the bush. So that's one of the reasons that was a big problem. Was when my dad, a couple things is when the escape happened, my dad and the movie The Great Escape done by the Americans, and this upset my father and several others. A lot of the movie was very factual about creating all the things and everything they did, but there's no Steve McQueen jumping. There were no Americans. Involved. Canadians played the biggest role going because a lot of them had to do with the mining industry and stuff. And here they built this thing that actually functioned with the slats of beds, and of course outside the guys got rid of the dirt from the tunnel with pulling the things. So all of that was factual. I'm glad the movie was made, because if it wasn't, this would have been just something that nobody even thinks about. So I'm glad they did it. But when they escaped, there was 10 inches of snow on the ground. My dad said when he came out of the tunnel, it was like a steam. It was like the chimney going up. The guard, they must have been sleeping or something. So they, it took 76 got out before they even got caught. So what they did was amazing. And I'm glad they did the movie, because a lot of it was factual, but it upset a lot of Canadians because it made it look like it was all there. Okay, so they get out. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, and I just I just skimmed the surface. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer. But one of the things that happened when my father passed away, and this is where I started to really appreciate it. As a kid, I wanted him to take me fishing. I wanted him to throw the ball to me, and all that. Never happened. But he comes back from the war, and then he becomes a lawyer. And anyway, so the day my father's funeral, a man comes up to me and he says, do you know who I am? I says, no, I don't know who you are, but thank you for showing up. He said, I'm the Solicitor General of Ontario. And he said, I hope I'm a better Solicitor General than I was a lawyer. Okay, I don't know what's going on. My dad was the Crown Attorney. And anyway, he said, on more than one occasion, so not telling you how often, on more than one occasion, your father would ask the judge for a 5-minute recess, take me outside and tell me how to defend my client. And I would win the case. Because your father was not about winning and losing, it was about justice and getting it right. And I've heard that story more than once. A couple of these presentations I've done at the Legion and stuff, and people in the crowd from the lawyers and Barry and stuff telling me the same thing. So I learned a lot of appreciation of my father after it was all over, and I did before. So appreciation and the PTSD and everything else. So I think.
Burke Thompson,
What?
They had a camera.
Well, this is showing the true conditions of what they were in, and how they, like the History Channel told me, we had to cancel it. That ground even was so frail. How they pulled that off, he said, just boggled their minds. Yeah.
It was winter, so the ground was more frozen then?
Well, okay, but don't forget they're underground. They're down substantially. And it was very, that's why it was built there, because there's nobody building tunnels here. Oh yes, over 10,000 prisoners in that camp. And Phil Marchionneau was in the camp, and he became a professional baseball player, and I asked my dad if Phil Marchionneau, if you ever met Phil Marchionneau in the prison camp, because it's so big. And he said, yeah, I asked him to throw me a ball one time and he wouldn't do it, because he didn't want to hurt his arm.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, that's my dad. And I think I just wanted to touch, if anybody have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer. My sister's over there, she probably come up with some.
How come your dad was in so many prison camps? Why would they keep moving?
Well, that's one of the things they're gonna do to people, is move them around, because the longer you leave somebody in one spot, the more planning and this is not, and all that's gonna go on. So moving them around was not an uncommon thing.
Burke, how was he caught?
Oh, because over the Ruhr Valley,
No, but I mean, when the Germans caught him after he escaped, or how was
Oh, okay, you're making a good, this is actually not a bad story. Because it's in one of the books, I've read these books, this is amazing. One of the stories, he was with two other escapees at the time, and this is one of the other guy's stories. My dad was pretending to be a French painter, and so they got caught by the Gestapo. And this is the other guy telling the story, and I said, well, he said, me and my friend, we gave up right away, but Tommy, my dad was called Tommy Thompson. Anybody with the last name Thompson, they found this out through Barry, they always called him Tommy. So they said Tommy wasn't going so easy. So he got into an argument with the Gestapo, and it was French. And when the Gestapo officer responded in better French than Tommy could muster, he knew the jig was up. So that's how he got recaptured. And the final one is, this one tore him, because he doesn't know that 50 are getting captured. And I found this out from the History Channel, by the way, that one of the Germans was given the job, because Hitler finally got talked out of killing them all, killed 50. This guy was given the job of who's going to be killed and who's going to get saved. And this is what I learned. So anyway, a guy from Winnipeg, he's got a wife and 3 kids. I'm going to try to save him. I'm going to put him on and try to save him. My dad was unmarried, single. He should have been first on the list to be killed. Now, in fairness to my father, he didn't know. He was just trying to, if I could save myself, I'm going to save myself. So he told the staff, if you had a second meeting, you're dead. So my dad's having his first meeting with the Gestapo after being caught, and he says, before I leave this meeting, there's something you need to know. And so the Gestapo said, what is it that we need to know? If something were to happen to me, Hermann Göring would be very displeased. Now, he doesn't know if Hermann Göring could even remember. This is 1939 to 1944. This is 5 years later. But he's just trying to save his bacon.
Yeah.
But what he didn't realize is the number 50. He didn't realize that he'd get saved, but somebody else is taking his spot. So you call it survivor guilt, whatever you want to call it. So that's another thing that he explains some of the things that he went through over the time. So, yes.
I was going to add something, and it's my Uncle Tommy, who I absolutely adored, was with the RAF, and he was in the camp when this fate happened.
Oh.
And he had terrible PTSD. He was a pilot as well, so we always heard about it, sort of third or fourth hand until we learned more.
Like Waxy, my friend Waxy in the back, we've talked several times about how fortunate we are to have been born and lived when we lived. When my wife and I got married, we talked about not having kids. I wanted to check the world's stability, because if my kid was to go to war and get killed, it would kill me. Excuse me. So the world was stable, so we had children, and thank God we got children and grandchildren and all us. But that was one of the factors. Didn't you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had a fairly stable world during our lifetime. And I'm a bit concerned about where it's heading right now, but let's hope for the best, not for me, but for my kids and my grandkids. Yes.
A memory back, I'm thinking in the 50s, your father invited Wings Day to come and visit.
Came to the cottage.
And I remember meeting him. He was the most impressive guy. He was unbelievable. It's like, I could see him putting forward the effort to get those tunnels built, so on. It was a fantastic man.
Wings Day was one of the ones, and I did a presentation for Barry TVs on it, and I said that Wings Day was the highest ranking officer in the prison camp of 10,000 prisoners plus. And that was the one of the names the Americans couldn't change, because, you know what I mean, the historical fact. They couldn't make it look like it was Steve McQueen or somebody else like that. So Wings Day actually came to our cottage, and that's when my dad opened really opened up. And they got into it. Once they got into it, they got talking. And then my mother said, in the middle of night, Wings Day climbed into the bed and she threw him out.
What a man.
So,
Doors locked.
Dad was quite happy that, again, that was lighting things up for him. So thanks for that, those questions, because it brings up other memories, so that was good.
Bert,
Yeah,
I guess it's in the movie that some of the prisoners learn German?
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but your father didn't learn German.
Oh, he would have learned a bit. Like, when I was a kid, honest to God, I don't know if I was 10, 12, 15 before, there was never talked about, and nothing, it's just, there's, you know, and I can appreciate why now. But, well, it was tough, and look what he did, the kind of, man he became, I'm more appreciative of it since he's passed, and when I had the miserable bastard yelling at me.
So in the complexities of building a tunnel like that, with all the engineers working on it, how do they miss, if you have any insights, how do they miss the simplest measure of length?
Okay.
How do they miss that?
Okay, the people behind that were from the mining, Canadian mining. And they're in the camp and they're projecting how far that bush is. And I don't know if the trees were cut back or whatever, but they were supposed to come up in the trees. That way they would have got over a couple hundred. But what happened was it came up short. And I can't argue with you there. It's just, they came up just short of the trees. And again, my dad's thing, it was just like the steam coming out of that hole. They couldn't believe the German guard didn't see it long before. And then,
In the movie, they explain about, because you could only walk to the fence, and if you got too close to the fence, then you got shot. So that's why they couldn't measure all the way up to the bush.
okay, so you just raised another interesting thing. Just this interesting story's coming back. My father, one of his jobs in prison camp, and we didn't know anything about it until my cousin's Beth's younger sister's getting married in Kitchener. And my mother says to my father, "You're coming with, we're going to Maggie Cunningham's wedding." He says, "I'm not going." She says, "You are going." So he went. At the wedding, the father of the groom interrupted the ceremony and pointed at my father and said, "I want everybody here to know that if it wasn't for this man right here, I wouldn't be alive today." Now this is interesting because my dad, in the movie, one of the things that upset my father really bad about was when the guy walked and the guys were yelling, "Don't go," and the Germans killed him. Because that was the job that found out my dad had, was when guys were feeling depressed or suicidal or whatever, he counseled them to not. So that was an impactful thing for him.
How old was your father when he passed? What year did he die?
He made a bad mistake. He told my mother when they got married that he lived 70. Score being 20 years. So he died the day after his 70th birthday in 1985. So I told my kids I'm living 80. He died in 1985.
Where was he laid to rest?
In St. James on the Line.
Oh, he's at St. James.
Yeah, he's a St. James on the Line.
Thank you for that.
Our family, yeah.
Did he have PTSD actually?
There's no doubt in my mind, and I worked in mental health most of my life, but being I'll tell you one of my best things. I mean, I slept in a doghouse at our house sometimes. I got along with the dog really good, and so when my mom phoned me, 1985. "Burke, come on over here. Something wrong with your dad. Get over here." So, and my dad, and this is what I'm saying, it was, get out, like that. And so anyway, I drove up and I opened his bedroom door and he yells at me to get out. And I thank God I said what I said, because my kids and my grandkids get sick of the word love, because I make sure they hear it every freaking day, because I never heard it when I was growing up. So my dad's in there, he's in bed, I can see that he's not well, he's yelling at me to get out. And I said, I'd like to get out. The only reason I'm here is because I love you. And I'll never forget it. As soon as I said that, and it's the only time I think I ever said it to him, I love you, and he relaxed. And I said, and we're going to the hospital. You've got two choices. One's over my shoulder or one's on my arm. Your choice. He gets up, took my arm and walked up, and an hour and a half later he passed. So I thank God that I said what I said at that moment.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, okay, just for, Johnson said, this, I was invited down to the Berry Legion. There's a flag of my father along with several other war heroes flying at the Legion outside. And a high school student did a presentation on my father. And her research and everything was amazing. Everything wasn't dead on, but she did. And this is the pamphlet that she put out. And I have the copy. Anyway, there was 3 presentations done, and this girl did one, and she did it on my father. So that's what that is. That's the other side. She did great. The research was amazing. Yeah. That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ted, we're on. Professor, I recently wrote a book, Untold, and I'm a member of the Sports Hall of Fame, and our take is obviously sports. But in one of the pictures, it's been bugging me for a long time. This is 1932. Remember the other one, John? This one here, 1932 picture. So you'll see the fellow in the back row, second from the right end. That's Phil Marshall. Just below him is A.B. Thompson. And the guy beside Phil Marshall that John was referring to is Jerry Barber. Jerry Barber died when he was about 94 years old. Wow. They're all the same football team, and what got me going was, how can we have all these guys, not all the guys in the Air Force, but A.B. and Phil Marshall ended up in the Air Force. They both ended up as prisoners of war. They both ended up in Stalag Luft III, and they both did the Death March. How can this happen for a population of 5,000 people? Incidentally, one of the other fellows in that picture is a Blackwell, and he's related to close friends to the Thompsons. He was in the Air Force. Can't find any information about him. So I'm not sure if he flew in when get that picture of one ahead. Next one on. That's all right. Sorry. We're gonna go. I want to mention A.B. Thompson. You'll see the airplane had the 2 wings. Makes you you're a pilot, and each aviation guy had a different set of wings. So when most guys went and got enlisted, they all went to Manning, which is the old exhibition. They call it Manning Depot the old exhibition in Toronto, that's when I did the training. So a lot of guys are going to the Air Force and saying, I'm gonna be a pilot. Well, I got news for them. Very few became pilots. They were shifted off, you're gonna be a navigator, you're gonna be a tail gunner. So my book talks about 8 different men, basically related to sports. There's John Blackwell, AB in the Air Force. My first character is Robert Dubeau. Robert Dubeau, his aviation career didn't last very long because he got killed in training, while training. So he's the son of Jumbo Dubeau, related to John in a way. So there's not a lot of history about it, but in my book I tell you how his accident occurred and what happened when he met his demise. The next fellow, I didn't get much information. The only way you get information on people from World War II is if they passed away or family. That's good right there, John. This picture is a fellow by the name of Andy Dubeau. Now, Andy Dubeau was in the Air Force. Andy Dubeau was a tail gunner. He worked at the Mental Health Center. And the only way you can get some information is if his family may have some information, but I haven't been able to get it. And this is sponsored by the Kiwanis hockey, not the hockey team, but Kiwanis sponsored a lot of teams back then as far as sports go. Even Stan LeClair's in one of those pictures from the Kiwanis hockey team, you know. So Andy's in there, tail gunner, survived the war. Don't have much information on him. Nice picture, John. This picture here is a 1930 Penetang. It's Penetang High School, not PSS. It's Penetang High School, the old high school. 1930. This football team has Phil Marshall's in it and 3 Copeland brothers. Oh, wow. There's Ed Copeland. Now, Ed Copeland did not go to war. He stayed home and managed the farm. His 2 brothers were Jack and Paul. They're on the other side. They're identical twins. Oh. I tried to find out some information. I got information on Don Copeland, but I couldn't get information on his brother. His brother survived. What I did find out is his twin brother, was not in the Air Force. He ended up being in the artillery. Whereas Don Copeland ended up doing almost all his sorties. He did 35 sorties. You could get out. He didn't make it. He got shot down, and there's a whole story about his aviation career before he got shot down. And his cemeteries in Belgium at present. Next fellow, John, we got. My next, there's pictures of Don Copeland. That team, by the way, 1930, ended up going to play the Toronto Argonauts. They were a good team, local team. They ended up playing the Toronto Argonauts, and they got the butt kicked. 51. This is Don Copeland here. You'll see just one wing in his vest. He was a tail gunner, and he was the only one in his flight that got killed. All the others ended up being captured, and believe it or not, some of them, 2 guys evaded capture for 3 months and returned back to England. This is Fred Scott. Fred Scott was actually born in Midland, but ended up moving to Penetang. He lived down in Victoria Crescent for a long time. He worked for Hydro One. What's unique about Fred is he wasn't a pilot, he wasn't a tail gunner, he was a mechanic. And the Air Force required a lot of mechanics, particularly for D-Day, when they had everything they could get their hands on in the air. You had to get these planes fixed and ready to go after every sortie, after every mission. You have to understand, some of these missions had 800 planes go on. Wherever they landed, these guys were working steadily. They had to take a special course here in Canada. You got sorted out, you're not going to be a navigator, you're going to be a navigator, whatever. He ended up in the maintenance mechanics, repairing airplanes during World War II. He also, there's part of the team that he became a strong individual supporting local sports. This is the Bantam team that won the All-Ontario. See Stan's in there, and Joel Lambrou. His son's in there as well, Doug Scott. Fred worked Penetang Hydro, but he also was instrumental in helping build the new arena There's Fred on top of the new arena. Our new arena. That was before it blew down. This is Cecil Soames. Cecil Soames wasn't born in Penetang, but he ended up working here after he did his tour of duty, working for the shoe factory. His background was in shoes. He first started in shoe business back to Zata, and all the people who were running the first shoe in Penetang at the time were Chuck to go back, and he came up here. He was a cutter and designer. He ended up playing ball. I think John played with him. Penetang Fastball League. He was a good ball player. His family was born and raised here, and he did. Believe it or not, he was with 2 squadrons, which he had information. They donated it to the museum down in Belleville. They had a fire and lost a lot of information. But he had 2 squadrons, which means if he was in 2 squadrons, he might have finished his first squadron with 35 tours, then got assigned to a second squadron. I can't prove that. There you go. There he is there, in his uniform. Now he's got the one wing. He was a navigator. This gentleman here is Red Hyde. Red Hyde wasn't born in Penetanguishene either, but he lived here after he retired for many years. He was, when I got back here, he was about 65. He lived to about 95. He lived up on Brule and ended up living up those Somerville homes. Were they on the corner of Lauren, yeah, he ended up living there when he passed away. Red was a tail gunner as well. A lot of these guys were tail gunners. Sorry. This chap, he was a tail gunner. He started off as a mid gunner, became a tail gunner. How I got information on Alvin Williams. Now, this farmer still exists on Tate Point Road. It's 3rd generation. Alvin Williams has got one of the most successful stories, and he did 2 tours, 2 complete tours, where he went through 2 squadrons, and then he got out of the service. But as he was getting out of the service, he re-signed up to go to Japan. He goes down to Toronto just to get on the train, and he finds out that the war's over. So he didn't go to Japan. He was going to do a 3rd tour.
So 35 flights and you can go home.
Yeah.
Back to Canada.
Not many did that. Not many got through 35. And I want to say this about A.B. Thompson. A.B. was a prisoner of war in 1939. His chances of surviving the war, when you look at the stats, weren't very good. So even though his prisoner of life was not great, he was probably survived.
Saved his life being captured.
Yeah, okay. Who we got next, John? There's a medal that Alvin Williams won. Distinguished War Medal. It was given out to for valor. It wasn't given out to many people. He got it from the Queen Mother.
Wow.
Now there's the 2 ways on A.B. Thompson's picture. Shows he's a pilot. Out of the crew I talk about in the book, he's the only pilot. There's Phil Marshall. Lots have been written about Phil. But Burke was talking about after the war, when you got the PS, whatever it is, Peter. Phil Marshall talked about it before he got out. His nerves were shot. When he came back to pitch with Philadelphia, that's what got him. His nerves were shot. And they were saying that once you come out of the service, it's about a year guys are okay. It's the 2nd and 3rd year where it really starts to affect them. He started throwing the ball 40 feet over the screen. Really effective. But the key is, he's a prisoner of war, Stalag Luft III, after the Great Escape, but he ends up doing the death march with A.B. Because the Air Force was a special camp of Stalag Luft III, but they had different camps, and they all didn't do the same death march. Some went here, some went there. They did meet at Burke. So that's the end of the story as far as my presentation goes. There's a lot more written in the book.
Good read, guys.